Hi everyone, we're sitting down with my dear friend Sophia B. She's a classically trained vocalist, an artist, a songwriter, a singer, a woman of God, and God has taken her on such a beautiful journey in the music industry. She's lived all over the world, so we're going to hear more about her journey. And I know music has been such a part of your life from a young age. Can we start there? Can you take us into your origin story?
Yes, thank you so much, first of all, for just meeting with me and taking the time to have this conversation. I'm really excited to share. I think when I think about my childhood, I think I was really blessed. My father was really musical. He doesn't play an instrument or sing, but he was very musical and he had a passion for film. He actually worked in the film industry before I was even born. And I think he passed on that love for film and for storytelling. I remember even when I was really young, he would basically create a bedtime story for me. Like he would just create a story. Sometimes he would read stories, but he would actually just create a story out of nowhere, put me to bed, and I think those memories are so dear to my heart. And I think I grew up with that influence of the film industry, film music, and also just some of the classics like Eric Clapton and Frank Sinatra. And so I always knew I loved music, and I think when I was really young, I was quite shy. And so for a really long time, I used to wonder, how am I going to do this music thing? I always knew I was going to do music, but I just used to think, I'm so shy. I'm more of a gentle personality. I'm an entertainer very much, but I'm not the type of person that is just going to get to the front of the room and get to know someone so that she can get an opportunity. And so I remember I used to ask God, how am I going to make it one day? And I think a lot of the journey has been shedding layers of a lack of freedom, really, and becoming the truer version of myself. And so I think growing up, I knew I wanted to do music, but I had these questions of how am I going to get there? And I think over time, I was able to really, as I tapped into my faith with the Lord, I always say that He was almost like a pair of glasses. I always had the vision, but then once I really took my relationship with the Lord seriously and personally, it's almost like the pair of glasses gave me clarity to what the vision was. So yeah, that's a little bit of, I know that's a little deep, but we're going there
We're
today.
going there, as we should, as we should.
Yes.
Can you share about using your voice and how, like, from a young age, the voice, you knew how powerful it was, how you ended up being classically trained in opera?
Yes, that's actually so interesting because, as I said, I do feel like I was more shy when I was a younger child. But then I knew I could sing because I would always find myself singing in the shower. And then my parents obviously could tell that I had a great voice. And my grandfather actually, he discovered an artist in Mexico. So I was born in Mexico City and I was there until like, I would say grade 7. And so my grandfather would always tell everyone she can sing. And like with most people in their families, they would sing for us, they would make me sing, and they would, encourage me. But I was just so shy. I don't think I, I don't think I wanted to do that. Although deep down, I really desired to connect with music and connect with people. And so I ended up joining a few choirs growing up. And I have this distinct memory when I was growing up. I don't remember what grade I was in, but I remember they realized I could sing and they asked me to sing We Are the World. And I remember,
No way.
yes, and it was crazy because I think we had some sort of rehearsal before the actual ceremony. It was for some sort of ceremony. I don't even remember what it was, but basically they asked me to go to this rehearsal, and the music teacher, he was super easygoing about it. I mean, I don't think he thought anything of it, but then he gives me the microphone, and all of a sudden I start singing. I'm in the courtyard of the school, and there were I think maybe 4 floors to the school. All of a sudden, I start singing, and by the end of the song, all of the kids came out of their classroom because they had heard me singing. And so it was, I guess, for them, this sense of like, who's singing? And I just remember that shook me because I had no idea that my voice could actually congregate people.
Wow.
And like that, I had a lot of little moments throughout my growing up where I remember even one time I went to a department store with my mom and they had a karaoke. And my mom was like, come on, sing a song. I start singing. And by the end of it, again, it was a crowd gathering around me. And I just thought that was so crazy that my voice could actually do that. And I think as well, growing up, I definitely had my encounters with rejection, I would say, where I think I encountered maybe 1 or 2 teachers who weren't really nice. I remember one teacher said, oh, she doesn't have a really good voice, or her voice is ugly. And
insane.
I know. But honestly,
jealousy is a disease. Jealousy, they're jealous. They're jealous.
But I think looking back, I honestly feel that I can see the resistance to me using my voice because I actually do believe that is my superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And even just to people watching, I would want to encourage you, and I want to encourage you to figure out what your superpower is. I do think God has uniquely gifted us with abilities and skills. And I've heard this before, that the place of your greatest anointing is the place of your greatest resistance. And I can definitely see that in my journey, how I do think there was an oppression trying to keep me silenced, because my voice is not just my singing, it's my writing, it's my speaking. And so, yeah, I can definitely see that. And so I guess to summarize it, different choirs. Eventually, I ended up pursuing vocal lessons more intentionally. That's where I discovered that, I was a dramatic coloratura, that I was the high soprano, and
she's got insane whistle tones. She can hit the Mariah whistle tones. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Thank you. And so, yes, I basically started training, classical training. And then I thought I was going to go to college for opera. But then it was in that part of my journey where I started getting really involved at church and basically realized that I had a passion for ministry and I had a calling for ministry. And so that kind of leads to like the next part of the journey, I would say.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Take us there, take us into knowing. It's so beautiful that you knew you had this voice and you knew you had this gift. And it's like, I feel like that often happens with people's journeys. Like we find our gifts. Sometimes the deeper we find our gifts, the deeper we find God. Like it feels true. The two are very connected. So can you share just, kind of after being involved in the church, more high school age, then what kind of college age years looked like of pursuing ministry and knowing you had this gift of singing?
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yes, I definitely think I can see the progression of the journey. So when I was like 15, 16, that's when I really took on my faith personally. And in that time, I ended up meeting a girl who was getting ready to go to Australia, to go to a college in Australia, Bible college in Australia. And she was the first person that God used to really disciple me. And she gave me a prophetic word that I was going to go to this college to study in Australia. And the college is very much focused on ministry, theology, and music as well. They're very known for music. And so I basically go to this college after 7 years of waiting. So I get the prophetic word when I'm 16, and I moved there when I was 23. And so in that time, I just felt like the Lord kept confirming that I was meant to go there, that I was called to ministry. And I think the music took a little bit more of a backdrop. I mean, I was serving at church in the worship team, and it was a small church, so it was one of those churches where you basically serve anywhere and everywhere because it's a small community. So basically, I moved to Australia when I'm 23, and then in my first year, I took worship vocals. So I was enrolled in my first semester, second semester in worship. And that's when I realized that I think I had a really long journey ahead of me in terms of becoming a more healed version of myself. I do feel like in that season, I really dug deep in therapy and counseling and investing in relationships that would mentor me. And so that was kind of like parallel to my journey because basically what ended up happening is I do feel like I had basically a 10-year journey where I pretty much just faced trial after trial. And it kind of ended up concluding with me getting sick. So I had really severe burnout at the end of my second year. And all the while I was in college, I was doing worship my first year, right? And I remember there was this conversation of platform opportunity. So people would kind of fight for the platform opportunities a little bit or ache or long for those platform opportunities. And I do feel like my first year, I was a lot more hidden. And I was serving in worship, but I was actually serving in the kids' ministry. And I actually remember going from worship leading at a small church and leading a worship service at a kids' ministry. It was such a different setting, but that was the first time that I realized that there was still so much freedom God had for me that I hadn't fully tapped into yet. And so it was perfect because I actually ended up reading a book that I recommend to everyone. It's called Anonymous, Jesus' Hidden Years and Yours. And this author, Alicia Britt Sholey, she talks about the hidden years. And that's what the journey felt like for me. I felt like for the longest time I was in the hidden season in anonymity and processing heartache, processing pain, and different things that I had experienced throughout my life. And so basically, when I'm about to finish my first year, someone gave me a prophetic word and they said to me, I have this vision of you and you're singing on stage and all of a sudden you put the microphone down and you go into the crowd and you start ministering to people.
Wow.
Into the heart, like one by one. And I remember that was such a pivotal word for me. And it kind of aligned with another friend in my intake giving me another prophetic word and saying to me, you are a shepherd, like you have a shepherd's heart and God has called you to shepherd people. And I do think I have such a heart for women and I have heart for people in the industry, but I think if I think about it, that is really the core of who I am, combining the gift of music and my gift to shepherd people. And I remember along that season when I was doing so much work to find inner healing, I remember I went to an inner healing retreat. And it was in that retreat where the ministry pair, it was two ladies, beautiful ladies, I think in their 50s or 60s probably. They were moms, amazing women of faith. But I remember one of them said to me, she's like, you've gone through so much hardship in your life, but it's because or not because God is actually using it to give you a shepherd's heart. And you know what it's like to suffer, and you know what it's like to experience the nearness of God in your challenges. And she said to me, you have a shepherd's heart. And I feel like that, the prophetic, the shepherd's heart, and the music have been such pivotal threads along my journey. And so basically, I ended up switching to pastoral ministry in my second year. And that was actually really key in my journey because I remember one of my trainers saying to me, don't switch, because if you switch, you're not going to get used in worship. But I just felt like the Lord had said to me, there is a pastoral layer to who you are, and I'm asking you to step out. And I switched, and it's crazy because basically, end of my second year, I finished my pastoral journey, my second year pastoral journey. I get sick. I have to take a 6-month break because I'm super sick. You actually had to get a pastoral approval to get into third year. And the lady who is kind of in charge, or was in charge back then, of providing this pastoral approval and having the pastoral interviews, she was amazing. I think she saved my life, that woman, because I was really set on going into my third year. And she said to me, you're very sick right now, The doctors kept pulling me out of serving. I had to take a break because I was so sick. I was dysfunctional. I mean, I was on the verge of panic attacks almost every day. I felt my body just felt so out of whack. And so she said to me, "Why do you have to go into third year? Like, why are you making it sound like this is the only pathway forward? You're sick. So, what you actually need to heal is to take a break. What if you take a break and you realize that you don't want to continue when you take the break? Or what if you take the break, you get better, and then you realize that you do want to move forward?" And so basically, I took the break. I'm so glad I did. And honestly, she did save my life. I don't know what would have happened to me if I hadn't taken the break, but I just knew I was sick and I needed that time. So I basically go into my third year. And 2 weeks before I start my first semester of third year, I mean, I'm feeling triumphant because I did feel the host of heaven cheering me on because I had taken that a step back and taken time to prioritize my healing and myself, really. And so I remember I had this little restlessness of what if I take a songwriting class? But to be able to take a songwriting class, you either had completed your either your first year songwriting or second year songwriting. I had not done songwriting either year. So I end up emailing them and I'm asking, is there any chance I can join the course? And so I remember the instructor who was supposed to provide approval for this course basically said to me, send me 2 songs and we'll go from there. So I end up sending 2 songs and he approves me to get into the course.
Wow.
And that was pretty much the key moment because basically what ended up happening was that before a key moment is before I started my semester, even had this restlessness, which I also now identify as God speaking to me. I know when God is speaking to me, sometimes I will get a little restless and there will be something in me, like a topic that is just recurring, and it's just God speaking to me and kind of nudging me to look into that. So I had to switch my visa to a student visa because I had taken this break, right? And I basically went from a working holiday visa to a student visa again. And it was on this trip that God really spoke to me. And that was the first time that God said to me, very clearly, He said to me, and He used people to speak to me, but it was just clear as day it was the Lord. And He said, look, there are 2 paths for your life. You can either choose a 9 to 5, you can choose to be a mom and a wife and buy a house and have a job. And if you choose that life, I will bless it. Or you can choose to do what I've called you to do. And if you choose to do what I've called you to do, it's going to be a lot harder. You're going to get a lot more pushback. It's going to take a lot more sacrifice. But if you choose to do what I created you to do, there's always going to be help along the way. And so basically that was so pivotal for me because I think so many things collided for me where I come out of this season where I was struggling with sickness. I had overcome so many challenges in my personal life. And then I realized that that's exactly what I needed to set me up for my journey, because what ended up happening was I go into my third year and I say to the Lord, yes, I'll choose to go where you want me to go. I want to do what you created me to do. And so in that time, it almost felt like I came out of this season of surviving. And I do think it was not diagnosed, but I do think I had some level of PTSD. I had been in survival for so long that I was just expecting the next hit. And it's just beautiful to see how God has used the prophetic so much in my life, because I do remember receiving so many prophetic words where they said to me, you're going into a season of life, it's a spring. And I remember almost like walking into a room, opening the door and feeling like everything was set up for me.
Wow.
All the connections in music that I couldn't have conjured up, and producers and people who had actually really invested into my songwriting and who saw me and who believed in me. And so basically I went into this season where I decided to take music professionally, take it up professionally and to pursue it. and everything was just set up for me. And I remember relating so much to Joseph. And I remember seeing this one interview where this author and a Christian speaker had written a book about how everything had gone wrong in her life. And it was out of that season of ashes that God actually built something beautiful for her. And she actually spoke about Joseph, and she said that he had gone through maybe a 10-year period of trials. And it was at the end of that period where he ended up being elevated. And he became the second in charge of a nation, and he had so much favor. And she said, if your life is ashes, that's okay, because Genesis says that God creates life out of dust.
Yeah.
And so that, I feel, has been my story. And then that's when it clicked in my head, and I actually felt like the Lord said to me, you thought you needed this flashy personality or this or that to make it in the industry, but actually I called you to do this, and what you needed was the intimacy with me to be able to sustain what I'm actually calling you to do. And knowing that I'm the one that's going to open up doors for you, knowing that I'm the one that's going to promote you. And honestly, that is what I have seen in my journey. God opening up doors that I never could have opened up for myself, connecting me with people that I never would have connected with. And so it's just been really beautiful to see how there is always help along the way. I mean, if I can just say, like, even you and my sweet friend Hugh, who is recording this, helping us record today, it's just, to me, another testament of God helping me step into the things he has for me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. What a beautiful journey.
Thank you.
I want to hear more about, life after leaving Hillsong and kind of how you ended up in LA.
Yes. I mean, that was another crazy journey. So I didn't think I was going to come to LA. I was pretty set on staying in Australia, and I actually loved my time there. I mean, it was challenging because I was working through so much healing, and there were life challenges that I had to overcome. But at the end of that time, I had built such a beautiful community, and it was so formative to me. To me, it was, that time in Australia was really stepping into who I was meant to be, or deeper layers of that, I would say. So I remember in 2021, I felt like the Lord said to me, you're going to move to LA. And the way it started is, the first half of the year, I ended up getting a bunch of prophetic words that I was going to move. And as soon as I got the first prophetic word, I was like, not again. Because,
Real.
Yes, moving and following God. I feel like I've been bopping around all over the world. And so I was like, not again. But what was funny was that, or interesting, I should say, in August of that year, a pastor gave me a prophetic word, and he said to me, you've been trying to lay down roots in this place, but you're not able to, because this was only your place of preparation. The next place that God is taking you to is the place where he's going to establish you. That is your place of promise. That is where he is going to fulfill a lot of prayers that you've prayed. And what he didn't know was that I kept having conversations with one of my best friends where I kept saying to her, I feel like I keep trying to lay down my roots, but I can't do it, and I don't really know why that is. And so basically that prophetic word that this pastor gave me was the tipping point for me to really surrender and say, okay, I think there's something here. And I mean, I have been training in the prophetic since I was a teenager, and I am very grateful for the teaching that my pastors provided in Canada as well. And I remember they always used to say to us, God does the natural and we do the supernatural. And I do feel like I had really good training of establishing the standards of wisdom, as in like almost like guardrails of wisdom of, okay, when you receive a prophetic word, you don't just go and jump into it unless God says that, but you kind of like building your discernment and, to fast, to pray, to seek safety in the multitude of counsel, and to have those voices of wisdom and trusted voices who really speak into your life and hold you accountable. And so basically, I end up receiving all these prophetic words, and that's exactly what I did. I started fasting, praying, speaking into my trusted voices, and also kind of thinking about how I was going to get here because I am Canadian, so I knew I couldn't just come here out of the blue. And so basically, the second half of the year, again, people who didn't know me didn't know anything. They gave me a ton of prophetic words that I was being called into the music industry and that my calling was going to look different. I wasn't necessarily called to create worship music, I was called to a secular space. But God was going to establish me in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. And so 2022 was the year I moved, and at the beginning of the year, I felt like the Lord said to me, "You're moving this year." By this point, I already knew that I could move and just get a work visa, just to kind of like scout the land. I went to school for writing. That was my first degree in communications and writing. And so I knew I could actually get a working visa as a technical writer. And it was a very supernatural journey. I mean, I felt like the Lord said to me, "You're moving this year." I had people come and share stories of how they had moved cities and countries in matters of months. And I knew that was just God building up my faith and telling me, "This is the path, you're going in the right direction." So in July, we had conference. And by this point, I had started to sell clothing and getting rid of books and just prepare myself from a practical point of place, all with that mindset of I do the natural and God does the supernatural. I did my part. And I even remember I had bought a bottle of champagne, 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate a friend. And I just remember how crazy I looked, probably because I remember we ended up using one bottle only for this celebration. And a bottle was left from that celebration. And I remember I said to my housemates, "I'm going to use it when I move to LA. I want to use it to celebrate that." And this was probably, I don't know, in March maybe. And then July comes, it's Hillsong Conference. I think maybe at some point in May, one of my housemates asked me, "Can I use the bottle for something else?" And I said, "No, I'm going to use it for when I leave." Maybe I probably sounded like a crazy person, but I had such a gift of faith for it. And July comes, conference comes. It was such a pivotal conference. I think as a church, it was a beautiful, redeeming conference. But also for me, it was such a redeeming time. And God did so much in that conference and really gave me a new level of freedom and just a measure of His presence that I hadn't tapped into yet. And so I remember a week, maybe and a half after the conference finished, I was really tired. And I mean, I don't know, I know you know what it's like to serve, and it can be a lot. And so I had been serving that full week of conference and working. And I remember I was so tired. And you know, when you finish a day of work and all you want to do is nothing? So basically, I remember that day the Lord just said to me, "Apply to one job today." And again, with that restlessness, that little nudge, it was so strong, the feeling of apply to one job today, that He wouldn't leave me alone. And I was so tired and I didn't want to apply to jobs, but I just felt like the Lord said that. So I basically ended up applying to this job. And that's literally the job that brought me here.
Wow.
And it was crazy because from that point on, they liked my resume. They knew I was in Australia, and they gave me a work visa. And my visa was processed in 9 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Is that normal?
I mean, they put it in an expedited process, but I don't think
Wow.
that's normal. I do think they were actually surprised because I actually ended up checking myself to see if it had been approved because I had a little inkling, and I actually ended up being the one to tell them it already got approved. And one of my best friends in that season was trying to move into her own space. So she ended up buying all of my furniture. Another one of my best friends needed to find a place to live, so she ended up taking over my spot at my house. And I mean, there's so many more details that I'm forgetting now, but every little detail God taken care of. And from the point the Lord told me, because I did feel in July, He said to me, "You're leaving in 3 months." It took 3 months, and I was here in 3 months. And it's just crazy.
That's so cool. I love how you say you do this and God does this. Like, you do the natural, God does the supernatural. And there's such a gift of faith on your life from such a young age. Just, I mean, I've known your story, but I think just hearing all these details again, it's like you could have given up. You could have said, oh, maybe that's not God. Maybe this is just what maybe I'm wrong, or just let discouragement take over. I mean, especially in the season of burnout. But the way that every time you have chosen faith over fear, over discouragement, over rejection, what is your advice to someone who is believing for something, or has experienced rejection, or is looking at a closed door? How have you kept that gift of faith and chosen faith in God over what the world is telling you?
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for those kind words. And I think, honestly, sticking it out with God. I mean, I do remember in that season, Hebrews 10:35-39 carried me. And there's a part in that section that says, "You have need of patient endurance to bear up under difficult circumstances without compromising. For once you have done the will of God, you will receive to the full what is promised." And I think it's in the Message version where it says, "We are not of those who shrink back in fear. We are of those who have faith, and having faith, stick it out with God." And I think for anyone who has a dream, or is facing a closed door, or is waiting for a promise, my advice is just to stick it out with God. I think God really is faithful. And I do believe that there are traces of destiny in all of us. And if we follow those traces and we follow the Lord, really, He will direct us. And I mean, scripture is very clear where it says, "I will order the steps of the righteous." And for me, it's been a thing of following the Lord. And I do think it's interesting. And it's interesting even just with the pushback that I feel I've sometimes experienced in my journey from the Christian community, even, or mostly, I should say. It happens.
It does happen.
But I think sometimes people question, especially when you are pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, is your heart in the right place? And I think people think, oh, it's the devil's playground. But to me, it's just been a journey of standing and believing what God has spoken and seeing Him open up the doors, and living a life of integrity and living a life of honor before God, and having that conscience of, even if no one agrees or some people don't agree with my journey, I know that there are people who know me, who have seen my journey, who know the integrity that I walk in, and also walking in integrity before the Lord and having a heart that is surrendered. I think there's nothing like it, because the fruit ultimately will be there. And so I think that would, I don't know if that encapsulates it, but following the Lord and trusting Him and persevering in faith, I think you cannot go wrong with doing that.
It's true. It's very true. What would you want to say to someone who's watching this who maybe does not have a faith, but is pursuing music and experiencing pushback, or maybe they're not experiencing pushback, but what would you say as someone who has such faith to someone who maybe that isn't a part of their journey?
I love that question. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I definitely hope this reaches everyone that it's meant to, but I think belief is such an important thing. And I think whether you believe in Jesus or not, we are created with so much beauty, and we carry so much power in who we are. I remember one of my college trainers said to us once, "When you walk into a room, let people feel the full weight of who you are." And that is something that I carry, and that I wish to impart to everyone. The power of you. There is only one you, and you carry something so unique. So I would say, believe in yourself. believe in what you carry and believe in the beauty that it brings, because I do believe we are all meant to carry something beautiful that is meant to restore. We are meant to redeem each other's stories, really. And I love the power of music in that it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. I've seen so many fans reach out to their, their favorite artist and say, "You got me through a difficult season because I felt less alone." And I think that's the power of music. And that's the power of carrying the thing that only you carry. Your story matters, and the power of you, there's nothing like it.
It's true. It's very true. God knows I've DM'd some artists telling them what they mean to me.
Oh, that's
they
amazing.
haven't seen it, but you know. Can you share just where you are today, your current mission, your current part of your journey with music? I know you have a song coming out.
Yes.
Would love to hear more about that as well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm in a new stage of life. I feel so much stronger. I can see the foundation that has been built. And I will say the now and the not yet. I think I've achieved so much freedom in Christ. And I will say, and not yet. I think there is still much more freedom to tap into with the Lord. So, on a personal journey and on a personal level, I think that's the journey that I'm on, tapping into becoming a fully loved person. And I remember hearing a pastor say the other day, walking into a room knowing you're fully loved. And I think that is really the core of it all. That is what I want to carry into the rooms that I go into, knowing that I'm loved, and hopefully activating other people into knowing they are loved. And so right now I'm really focused just on a practical level in putting my music out there. I am starting to do a lot more shows and connecting with people. I think that's a big part of it, and that's what I want to do. I want to connect with people. And I'm also trying to connect with women. I think I do have such a heart for women and the protection of women, especially in this industry that is so dictated and influenced by men. I think we can be so vulnerable. And so my dream and my goal is to eventually reach a lot of women and equip them with tools in their faith, but also in their career in the entertainment industry, or I would say specifically music as well. And I do have a new single coming out. It's coming out August 22nd.
Yay.
I'm excited, and I love this song. It's a very sassy girl power song of just when you experience a crush and you know that you like them, and kind of saying to this person, you know, love is a chance, you can take the risk, but also I know my worth. So kind of it's like a little cheeky thing of, why don't you step up? And I know what I'm worth and I know what we could be, but I need you to step up to the plate. As we know, dating can be a whole topic. But I just hope that people have fun with this song.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a girl power anthem. And I have plans to record a music video. Stay tuned for that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so
And take us, I just want to hear real quick, what is your creative process like?
Yes.
For writing and singing?
Honestly, I feel like I write a lot of my songs around my voice. Like my voice is the centerpiece. And I do have so much influence from Mariah. I love Mariah. And I've been so impacted by her journey, her story, and her voice, and how she has also persevered in the face of so many trials. And I think I love how she does all of her vocal layers. You will see that a lot in my music as well. There's so many vocal layers, and so I write my music around my voice. And I'll usually just have melodies pop up. Sometimes I will dream melodies and wake up and record something. But it's pretty much this sense of I just carry the message in my heart, and I carry this message, and then I try to think of how it's meant to sound. So I'll literally pull up my voice notes recording, and I will have a melody, and I'll just start recording an idea. So I will record a verse idea, a chorus idea, a bridge idea, and maybe like a potential ending idea. So I will try to get literally like humming, singing, melodies, and then maybe some words. Like I'll have a theme of, okay, I'm wanting to focus on hope or whatever it might be, and kind of playing a little bit with words. And then I'll go back to that idea and just polish it and work with producers and musicians. It's pretty pieced, I would say. Once you actually start putting the song together, it'll go to the producer first. We'll work on a demo together. Then it'll go to some of the musicians, and they start adding the layers of drums or guitar or whatever the song might need. And pretty much until completion, like all the way to the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer, and then all the way to distribution.
Wow. It's amazing to hear. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited for this next song because
Thank
it is,
you.
I love it. I wish I could be jamming it already. You know, I just love it. Is there anything else that you would want to share just to people who are watching and aspiring artists, people of faith? What is your overarching message that you'd love to say?
Yeah, thank you. I think my message is believe in yourself and know that God loves you and that He sees you, and you can always find a friend in me. I hope that you can connect with me, and feel free to reach out. I love prayer and I love praying for people. So, even in that sense, if there are any requests that you have, feel free to send them my way. And just know that you have a friend believing in you and who is praying for you and who is cheering you on this journey.
It's true. It's true. You've prayed for me for so many things.
Oh,
Like you have the gift of prayer, truly. It could be the smallest thing going on in my life, the biggest thing. Sophia's like, I'm praying. And actually, she will send you a voice memo praying for you. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful. And thank
And
you.
one more thing I will say, my sweet friend Maggie, I just want to thank you so much for this time. She's an amazing journalist and a celeb in the making, and just an incredible woman of God. And I just can't wait to see where God takes you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope people connect with you as well. If you want to share your socials.
Sure, Maggie Geiler, Geiler. It's not Geeler, it's not Geller, it's Geiler.
Geiler.
Yeah, please hit me up.
I love that. Hit us up.
I love talking to strangers and asking people questions.
Yes,
But
you have
so
a gift
grateful
for
for you.
that.
And thank you for sharing. And thank you all for watching, for listening. This has been such a great conversation, and I cannot wait for the new music. So thank you.
Yay!